Hello and welcome to For Your Imagination, the series where big ideas meet bold experiences. I'm Tom Gray, the Chief Strategy Officer of Imagination, the experience design agency, and we're here in our tech lab in our headquarters in London. For Your Imagination brings together curious minds across the worlds of creativity, business, science, and technology to explore what's happening in experience and what's coming next. And today's theme we've called the participation pivot. We're looking at how demand for in-person experiences and the experience economy is driving new forms of brand engagement, brand worlds, and experience-led business models. So let's start with what we know. We know that demand for experiences keeps growing. We know that the experience economy is booming. Some research from Barclays recently showed that entertainment spend had grown in 42 of the last 48 months since May 2021, while in the US, 25% of adults and 44% of high earners spent more on experiences last year than the year before. And crucially, 3/4 of them say experiences offer better value than products. So with that in mind, what's changing? Well, one of the things that we think is interesting is how the category boundaries for the experience economy are starting to break down. Typically, it was entertainment, hospitality, and travel brands who would offer experiences, but now we're seeing brands from the likes of F&B, automotive, apparel, sports, and beyond, creating their own experiences for people. And these are not just campaigns. These are places, worlds, and formats where people choose to spend their time and their money. And this changes the commercial model for marketers for a start. When you're starting to get people paying for your experiences, you can think about your budgeting differently, you can think about your ROI differently. Equally, it changes the mindset. When people pay for an event, they think about it differently, they value it differently, they remember it differently. So it's a huge opportunity. We conducted some independent research with GWI and found that 24% of consumers have already attended a branded event, but 85% are curious or enthusiastic about them. So the barrier isn't the appetite for it, it's the availability. With that in mind, today we'll explore why experiences are so powerful, what strategies brands can use when they're thinking about designing these immersive experiences, what best in class looks like, and what's coming next. So I'm really pleased to introduce my panel today. We've got Abi Evans, the Experiential Business Lead at Outnet, and Matthew Bennett, former Secret Cinema Creative Director. So Abi and Matthew, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
So why don't we start let's start at the nuts and bolts of it. What is it about experiences that are just so timeless and make people attract people? Matthew, well, can I call you Matt?
Yeah,
Matt.
Variety is good. Yeah,
you've been in this business for a while. Yeah, what are the things that you think haven't changed about why people want experiences?
Yeah, well, we've always had them, haven't we? Whether it's a cave painting or a ritual. A colleague at Secret Cinema years ago was telling me about an old ancient Greek island, which it was like a theatre island, and people would row out to it. It was very small, and it just had theatre on it, and you had to wear a mask, which kind of sounds like the start of Punch Drunk.
I was going to say Fire Festival, but yeah.
And we've always had them, and I suppose now that we've had to build them and put a fence around them and charge for them, we feel like we've kind of reinvented them, but we kind of reinvented the wheel a little bit, haven't we? But it's to do with transformation, it's to do with shared experience, it's to do with communal experience. We've kind of lost that. I think streaming killed the water cooler moment. Our phones have atomized all of our attention. We're all looking at different things. We're all in our own different worlds, and we just need to come together and share space. And a lot of these things are just, we're making up our new rituals that we've lost.
Yeah.
And so, our phones are really bad for isolating us. And one of the things we did at Secret Cinema, the founder, Fabian Regel, he was really early at the races at this, locking phones away so you can be present, so you can engage, so you can step inside the story. And it was, I suppose, all based on that quote by Oscar Wilde, give a man a mask and he will show you his true self. And I think these experiences allow us to find we shed our skin a little bit and connect with ourselves and the people around us, our friends, also new people. Some of these experiences are very, very social. You get to meet people and that doesn't happen enough, really, does it?
So let's go in on this idea of shared attention and shared space. I think that's so powerful, right? This idea of stepping away from the phone and sharing that. Outnet is probably a good example of that, right? I mean, are you seeing similar things in terms of why something which is so new taps into...
Totally. I think you've both touched on it, but we do live in a world of digital clutter, I think, and potential risk of AI slop at times. And so we create a space that people can step into and, kind of take some time away from the social side of things and just enjoy that shared space with other people. There was a report recently, the Bethwell report came out in Q1 just this year, and actually events are now the leading category in marketing. So we're off to a great start in 2026 and kind of proves that the demand is there for events, right? And I think shared spaces, that's kind of what we're all about. We want to bring people into an environment where they can feel a sense of community and share that space with other people collectively to enjoy an experience. We're also finding that people don't want to passively consume experiences anymore. They want to be actively part of them. We create loads of experiences where people actually can become part of the content, or they become part of the experience. We do it with Spotify, where people can share their own personal wrapped stories, and then those come up on screen, and then the people in the space effectively become the experience. And we find that such a popular format because people don't want to just come and look at it, they want to feel it, and they want to leave feeling something as well. I think there's so much, there's so many things and events that happen, but what do people feel when they leave the experience, and what is the positive impact it's having on the people who are, actively making the effort to go and be a part of it?
This idea of participation is such an interesting one because it really is something that you can only do in the real world, right? It's a lot harder to get this communal participation where we all do something. In some of the work that you've done, Matt, how do you think about that? And how do you conceive of an experience? Do you think about the participation right at the start, or does it emerge?
Yeah, I think it's, for me, all my work is just audience first. It really is. It's like, what are their needs? I have to start with like a bingo card of like, if it's an IP or a story or an album, it's like, what are the must-have things in there that the fan needs for it to blow their mind, and then layer on top of that. And with that sort of kind of early mapping, it's all down to emotions. And so I do like loads of emotional mapping. Same with any film or book or anything, you're always feeling something. And if you're in an experience, you're not feeling anything, you've kind of failed. Unless for some sort of unique reason in that moment, you wanted to feel absolutely nothing. But I've not ever made anything like that yet. And so, emotional mapping and just being a guardian, really, of the authenticity of the story. Because a lot of the stuff I've made, like Stranger Things, Blade Runner, Guardians of the Galaxy, these are like people's favorite films. And you've got a great responsibility of bringing somebody into it and not messing it up and betraying them with like an idle, bad line of script or a bit of set that doesn't quite work. And so just becoming a super fan and growing this kind of bubble of the suspension of disbelief. This bubble just needs to grow bigger and bigger and bigger, and the more that they step through the story and the more they believe in it, the more robust that bubble gets. So it can excuse the bit of trust, or I don't know, when we did Romeo and Juliet, there was like all sorts of things flying over in the sky, and it's just like distracting flight paths and stuff. And it blocks those things out as long as they're in the story. So lot of it's about authenticity and believing and feeling.
It's interesting how if you can create that sense of immersion, people do become quite forgiving, or they will block things out, and almost it's this willing suspension of disbelief.
Absolutely. And it terrifies me because I go to so much immersive work, and the membrane between it being really good and quite bad is so thin. It's so thin. And I go to stuff and they just, some designers don't quite get the basics right. People kind of rush into things and like, who are the audience? Where are they going? When are they going there? Why are they going there? What makes them turn up? Why do they carry on? Like answering these kind of basic questions, and if they haven't been addressed, and the whole thing, and I stand there, and it makes me doubt my whole career and my whole future of like, why do I do this? And then you go to something else, and you're like, oh my god, this is amazing. This is like the best thing I've been doing in ages.
Now I feel.
But it's fragile.
Okay, so I want to, before we get into why people go to experiences, actually, you've just sort of sparked a thought. I'd love to dive into. What are ways that you can really screw it up? What are, if you think about, when brands get it wrong or designers get it wrong, like what are those moments where you go, oh, this is a complete clanger?
Yeah, I think the branded world's different, isn't it? Because it's like there's loads of it going on, and it's like more of a marketing thing than like an artistic thing. I think they can rush into making content, think they need to create a backstory, a lore, this world building thing. And actually, it comes down to like mood. I think mood's really important, and atmosphere. And also, I think a question for more brands is like, what is true here with your brand that isn't true anywhere else? Because if they can answer that question, then they've kind of cracked it, really. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. So building on this, what you were saying, Abby, actually about kind of shared experiences and shared spaces. What we found when we did this experience and really dug into why people are going to these experiences. So when we did the research, why people are going to these experiences, what they look for, what motivated them to buy the ticket, what they did afterwards. When you crunch all of those data points, it's actually really interesting. What emerges is these 5 archetypes of experience goers. And I'm going to have a go at trying to recall all of them without notes. So we've got the novelty hunters. So these are people who are really motivated by the wow moments, by big entertainment moments. We have the insiders. These are people who are motivated by status and exclusive access. So you can think about smaller experiences or behind the velvet rope experiences. It's not for everybody, but also people who kind of want to get closer to the brand when you're in brands, or I think in entertainment law, people who really want to geek out on it. We have the social connectors. So these are people who are really motivated by spending time with friends. What are we going to do? Let's do something together. And I think I've seen a lot more of that, of people actually wanting to go out and do stuff. Yeah. We've got the self-improvers, who I think are really interesting, who are motivated by learning something new, but also perhaps even just being inspired. And Alternate might be an example of that in terms of just these immersive art experiences that cross over into the public realm. And then finally, we've got the escapists, so people who want to, take some me time, go out. It's a little bit of wellness. It's but it's also just looking after themselves. Do you see these archetypes in the experiences that you design, or how people interact?
I can think of relevant examples at Alternate that actually tick every single one of those. But we definitely, I think, people who are after. Now I can't remember exactly how you phrased it, but the social connectors is a great example. Obviously, sharing a space with people and kind of coming together to do something as a group. And kind of share kind of key interests and things in the space is really key. Education, we do a lot editorially actually as well. So it's not all just commercial all the time. We do a lot of editorial content that quite often has an educational nod to it. We've done things about kind of ocean, like marine life and things before, so we can definitely tap into that as well with some of that editorial content. And then I think wow moments kind of speaks for itself. People come to the Alternate to be wowed and to kind of enjoy that content and sort of the 360 immersion that you can really experience. And we like to pride ourselves on the fact that we are accessible, free to use, and so we can really tick that box for people who are kind of in central London looking for something to be wowed by. For sure. It
is really it's almost a jewel box.
Yeah.
They come to Gorp, don't they? Like, oh my God.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
And
you
see a lot of people with, like lying on the ground,
Yeah.
like taking the content in, or taking their phones out, and kind of just filming what they're seeing in the space. And great for us because obviously that social reach just is organic and just kind of constantly churning. So they definitely come for wow moments.
And it sort of relates to what you were saying earlier, Matt, about give a man a mask. It's weird how people's behavior, people do things that you wouldn't expect them to do in amongst strangers when you put them into these experiences.
Yeah, it's interesting because the archetypes you're talking about, so I've been working in immersive for about 12 years. When I first started on Star Wars, when I was like learning and training, it's things with these car types were kind of taken care of more intuitively. We didn't have all the data. It was more like creating an experience where there's something for everyone, but it was more done through gut. And it just shows now how the immersive, the experience economy has grown up now, where we have these really quite accurate archetypes that we believe in, and we can start painting experiences directly at them. And it just shows like we're in an industry now. It's like it's not gone from a kind of niche fleeting thing. It's like there's a lot of thought getting put into it these days. But we'd always have like wallflowers through. We'd have 5. There was a fan group called the Positive People of Secret Cinema who'll do anything. They'll come to 10 shows. They're like indistinguishable from actors. Crazy. And then we'll have wallflowers of people that's like first immersive experience, might look a bit uncomfortable, might not want to come back. But that give a man a mask notion, you'd often see them go from like a number 1 to number 2 quite quickly, and number 2s to number 3s, and they're all flowing up more and more confidently into like, I'm coming back, this is great. And it's come down to play. We don't play enough. like a
I
tour.
think that's right.
And it really is. It's just as simple as that, I think.
And people want it. Like they want to, they want to be given the permission and give themselves the permission to, go out
Permission to play,
permission
absolutely.
to play.
And that is another thing. Back to your other question of like, what do people get wrong? You have to give permission to play almost immediately, and I think in any format, just because otherwise we're like a bit trapped in our little lives that we aren't quite fun enough.
Do you have any tips? How do you signal this permission to play?
It depends on the story, but connection, communication, turning the audience in on itself. I think there's never enough actors, and there's always audience members who are more ready to go, and so creating that social connection, that kind of social chemistry, music, lighting, there's a whole toolkit, I think, of allowing people to just like pop themselves out.
Yeah. So there's one part of that which I think Secret Cinema always did really, really well, which you're starting to see with branded experiences, which is you think about the before and during and after. But the before in particular, from my experience of going to Secret Cinema, was really part of it. You got these communications. They really sort of prepped you. They prepped you for the character you needed to be. They prepped you for, there was a bit of mystery about where you're going to go. And so way before you arrived, you were, absolutely ready. You were ready to play. You were really up for it.
And a lot of rules.
And a lot of rules.
A lot of rules.
Yeah.
Rules are important.
Well, rules are important for games.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you can't play a game without rules. Exactly. And so all those newsletters were normally quite heavy-handed. I remember you're reading them and you're like, that's not enough. We need to turn that up. Like you must do this. You have to do that. It's not passive. It's kind of parameters for allowing people to kind of, and then also teaching them the language, the cadence, the fashion. We make massive like social feeds with far too much content, stuff you would never do these days. But like endless amounts of like proof of like this is how we want you to arrive.
But let's then look at, because that looks remarkably like campaign planning, right? Before, during, and after. And so from an Outernet point of view, when you're working with brands, do you think about that as well? You've got this amazing physical experience, but what's the sort of what's the before, during, and after? What's the advice of how to make the most of it?
Yeah, I think it does come down to the brand and what they're trying to get out of it. And I think you do need to have a moment of interrogating that brief, just to understand, like, what are your objectives? What do what results do you want to see after this, so that we can make sure we're recommending to you the best use of our spaces. We have 4 different event spaces. We have these massive screens, but we can make recommendations on whether gamification should be a part of it, and that kind of playtime and things like that. We can help as long as we understand what a brand is trying to look for. And Samsung's a great example of this. We worked with them last year. We were part of a multi-channel campaign that they were running last summer, but we knew that product was key for them, social sharing was key, and intent to buy was key, and we kind of just went in on this really cool, immersive retail experience with product trials, masterclasses, chances for people to kind of use the phones to take photos, having those photos then on screen, becoming part of the experience, and we did a load of brand measurement around it. So then post-campaign, we could say, look, this has performed really well. We had 66% of people who visited the experience share on social media. And then we had 82% of the people who came say they were intending to purchase. So you're like, okay, tick, we've obviously kind of delivered on the things that you were really passionate about. So I think, understanding the brief and the objectives from the get-go is really important. And then we can put in the measurement tools behind that to kind of show, ROI, which ultimately everyone wants to see. And I think experiences have notoriously been not the easiest thing to measure, but now we're just finding more and more ways to kind of show that performance and how well they can do and work hard for brands.
And so do you think about, when you work with your agency partner, do you think about Outernet as a sort of a big moment within an integrated campaign that they'll try and aim the social and the
I think a lot of the time we're kind of seen as that sort of cherry on top moment as part of a wider campaign. If we are part of a multi-channel, sometimes we are the plan, like it's just us and we are one big wow launch moment. Like if people are looking for a big PR moment and it's just a one-off, content, that they just want to get loads of content and they want to push it out, they might just activate and with us and do something big. But quite often we are a part of a wider plan. And so, you always have to have that in your mind as well. Other things will be happening on socials and out of home and things. We're obviously one London location, but the social reach, that's really help for that kind of, additional reach. And then other things, we've partnered with the likes of Lab Bible, global media and entertainment group before to help with those national reach pieces, which sometimes, that might be a really key part of a brief. And that is when we would look to work with a partner to ensure that we're not just talking to people in London, but we're talking to people kind of nationally as well.
And I suppose that is the moment when you use the theatricality of it to create a big, amazing picture that can travel.
Something
right?
that looks amazing on socials. Those hero shots, and maybe some pre-promotion. Like, to your point, obviously you do it really well at Secret Cinema, but some pre-promotion that might go out as well. Teasers that might get people who are in London to come to the space. Content that's taken in the space that can then be pushed out. So it feels like it's one kind of holistic plan there, and it has the longevity. Even if it's 1-2 days out net, it kind of lives on beyond that as well.
I wanted to talk a little bit about technology, and what you guys are seeing, what you're interested in, perhaps what you'd love to be working with.
Shall I go?
Yeah. Why don't we start with that tonight?
Cool,
a lot of technology there.
It's full of technology. We actually have an amazing studio team in-house. The creative tech team are amazing. They're always working on something new, which is really exciting. We had a tech first last year. We worked with Jaiku. They are a car brand, part of the Cherry Group. They were launching in the UK, and we did this immersive test drive experience where they brought the car, we brought the tech, and we managed to seamlessly integrate the two so people could actually get inside the car and have a driving experience whereby when they were steering the wheel, it was influencing the content on screen. They were driving through this Jurassic terrain. There was a partnership with Universal that they had with Jurassic World, the film that came out last year. So it was all set to be like you're driving through that kind of setting. And it performed amazingly. I mean, they shot up by September. We ran it in June, and by September they'd shot up to the 4th best-selling car in the UK. So we were like, yes.
Amazing, and such a great coming together of a great piece of IP, great product. And,
I
great
mean, it took
experience.
a lot of planning to make sure you get it right. Like, to your point, it has to feel authentic, and it has to feel like people who are fans, whether it's of the film or the car or both. It has to feel authentic to them. But it was amazing, and our team were really buzzing about it because it's something we'd not done before, and we were like, we can do this. And that's so cool to think. And we actually won a Silver Drum Award for it last year as well. So
fantastic.
Yeah, we were pretty happy about that. But it's all down to our amazing tech team that we have in-house. And I'm excited to see what's next. Like, it's moving so fast, isn't it? And I think with the Summer of Sport coming up, we're working on something internally at the moment for that. So watch this space.
Great.
So,
Nice.
Very good.
I'm quite envious you've got a building with a parameter around it that's just a thing. Because it's overwhelming. There's so much. And now I'm freelance. I'm working across, I've got a couple of computer game launches, an album coming up. There's like a endurance driving academy thing. And it's impossible to stay up on top of all the technology. So it's my job is to figure out what the story is, and then go and I'm cultivating lots of relationships with technologists who we help each other. And then I'll bring them a brief and be like, this is the story, what have you got? Because it's just impossible to stay on top of it. But that said, the spatial sound thing that's about to happen is absolutely incredible. I don't know if you've experienced anything like that. There's a thing happening, I think it's R&Ding now, Polygon Live, which is L-Acoustics, fully saturated spatial dome. It's like a spatial concert,
we
basically.
have those.
So just for people who don't understand spatial audio, can you describe the experience?
Yeah, so it's basically loads more speakers, and so
what can you do with it?
Radical kind of sound design where you split up stems. And I saw this techno artist called Max Cooper play on this rig in a festival called Polygon last summer, and he, for example, in a breakdown in dance music, the bass would disappear. It's quite hard to control bass, but it's much easier to control mids and highs. And so imagine a track breaking down into different percussive instruments that are circling around you, almost like birds circling around your head. And then when the bass drops, it comes through your body down into your feet, which automatically start dancing magically as the bass comes back.
That's so cool.
And it just pairing that with visual storytelling with LED screens like this, that I'm really excited about that sort of future. And the end of the Stranger Things show that I made at Secret Cinema was kind of in the round with video and surround sound, but the spatial audio, the precision, and just the absolute, it feels like your brain's been plugged into a new way of listening without, I mean, that sounds quite hypey, but it does actually feel like that. So really excited about that. And then it's just just real time everything. Everything is going to be AI in everything, and everything can just react.
Respond.
Respond in
Yeah.
unique and personalized ways. I think the degree of personalization is about to go off the chain.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Do you feel that, how to phrase this question? What's the role of the human? You talked earlier about actors. What's the role of the human?
Well, we've got to direct it, we've got to curate it, and we've got to put the soul back into it, because it's just, it's just assimilating everything that we've already made. So there still needs to be creativity at the heart of it. It's kind of scale. I made a Guardians of the Galaxy show, and do you know Rocket, the raccoon? So we had a voice actor in a porta cabin with a video, and this great company called Mesmer Video Suppliers. They designed this mocap system and got the puppet off the digital puppet off Marvel, and basically made a talking rocket, and it was amazing. You'd be like, there was an interactive screen. There was loads of interactive screens in the show, and then Rocket was just like this great character where you could just pop up on the screen, and be like, "Hey, you, yeah, you, yeah, you," and then like, "You in the stripy shirt," and we're like, and the guy in the stripy shirt, we're like, "Yeah, with a stupid face," and it was just great. But like,
and this was a person in a porta cabin.
In a porta cabin,
okay.
and it was two-way camera, two-way microphone, and it just worked great. And he was just like the master of like quarterbacking people around the world, sending them on missions, and there was loads of screens, so you could pop up in different places. But we only had one of those guys, and so being able to scale that across multiple screens, like that shows the power of AI. But it also shows how that voice actor wouldn't have a job anymore. So it's like, this is quite we know what that equation looks like. But that's how it's scaling. You can just have these reactive things everywhere.
Yeah. I do think, though, you were talking about hiring actors and having actors in the space.
Yeah.
For me, digital can only go so far.
Yeah.
And actually have
Absolutely.
like, actual people who are playing actual
Absolutely.
parts.
And I had this conversation loads, because the budget's kind of king,
Yeah.
and it's always like, and actors are very expensive. When you cast an actor, there's a costume, there's a costume maker, there's probably a stage manager, there might be an assistant stage manager, there's a show caller, there's someone washing the costumes. Like it's like this mad pyramid with one actor stood on the top. But what they bring is just incredible. Like, they can sing, they can dance, they can direct, and the immersive actors in London blow my mind. They can do those things, but they can also, in kind of free roam shows, they can receive an audience member. They can triage them where they are in their immersive journey. If they come here before, if they've been in an immersive show, they can just tell, and then they can get a piece of information off them, like a comment, and just do what improv is. Take a thing, make it interesting, give it back to them, make them feel special, and then they do that inside the story. I'm like, it's just incredible. And I think being able to put even just a dancer on a podium brings energy which humans need. And I think we're always going to have live performance for sure.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, well, we find it with anything that we do in this space. People, they come and they want to enjoy things in their own pace and things, but sometimes we do guided experiences where you kind of really need to follow a specific journey. People won't do that in the same way if their phone's kind of telling them, oh, go to the next room and do this. Yeah. But if you have someone in the space who is dressed up as a specific character from a specific, I'm referencing The Witcher from Netflix at the moment. Right. I should have started with that. But we did this guided journey. It was open to the public, but it was a controlled experience. And without the actors, it wouldn't have worked. It wouldn't have been a thing, because you need those people there to A, set the scene, B, be able to improv with people. Some people might have never been to Outnet before and be a bit like, what is this? Some people might be really confident to kind of walk through, but they can guide people through a journey and also make sure those people are, experiencing every single thing that this experience might have to offer, and that they don't miss anything. So, I couldn't agree more that some things are irreplaceable, and I think that is one of them.
Yeah. All right, you touched a little bit on the commercials when you talked about the pyramid of people underneath an actor. Let's talk a little bit more about it. How do you when you're thinking about planning immersive events, small to big, how can you give some pointers around, how you think about maximizing returns, or, the commercial side of it is obviously... Things could go horribly wrong.
Yeah, they're expensive things. You get it wrong. Yeah. So three-part, getting the operating model, and I do a lot of that now in freelance. Like it used to, we'd work it out in committee and producers be involved, but with the computing power now, being able to model throughput, duration, like mapping experiences, it's like almost immediate. And so getting a really good, tight operating model that's believable and achievable against a venue that you can afford. there's a lot of magic maths that comes first, and then get the story in there. I think if you start with the story, it's easy to get carried away.
Yeah.
So get all the magic maths down first, and then in terms of maximizing return, like multiple reasons to come back, whether that is variations of the story, different endings, different things happening in the building, dual use, triple use. Merch, F&B, obvious stuff like that. Partnerships,
Let's talk a bit more about partnerships.
Partnerships,
So, really interesting world where you've got these perhaps IP-led experiences.
Yeah.
Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
And then you might insert a brand into it.
Yeah.
What are the do's and don'ts of that? Like, when is it great and when is it awful?
Yeah, well, I'll rewind a bit, actually, if that's all right. I used to
Yeah.
be the music editor at Clash magazine, and we used to do loads of these. It was like, Vice kind of invented the brand partnership in a way, especially in magazine world. And at Clash, we were like a little bit downstream, like the younger brothers of Vice. So we were doing them as well.
Yeah.
And in that kind of editorial triangle, like you've got the reader, you've got the brand, and then you've got a cool thing, like a band.
Yeah.
And in that triangle, someone normally kind of got stuffed. Like,
Pick two. You mean.
yeah, like the editorial was a bit stinky, so the reader didn't like it, or the band wasn't big enough for the brand and they didn't like it. But in immersive experiences, like as long as the brand is integrated, if it's a more artistic entertainment piece, if they're integrated early enough, then it's just a joy to deliver. So like when we did Blade Runner, we had loads of partnerships on there, but two things that really stood out was, one, we couldn't have flying cars because we couldn't afford them and they don't exist yet. And we tried, like, how are we going to get and Teslas had just come out. And we're like, let's do a Tesla partnership. Like, they weren't, I don't think they were even in the UK. Two got shipped over from California, like so new. And so they would go and pick up VIPs from their homes, and they'd have TV screens in the back, and they would get stories sent to, like, they would get briefed on the way in, and then an actor would come and get them out of the Tesla and take them up to the chief police officer. And if you remember in the film, they drink Johnny Walker whiskey. So they'd go up and they'd meet the Chief Byron, and they would have a shot of Johnny Walker whiskey. And it's like, the audience is like, I'm in the film.
This works.
I'm in the film. And all we did was kind of, repurpose a Tesla and then just copy the film. And everyone was just happy. Everyone was really, really happy. So I think, again, staying true to what the brand should be doing, staying true to the story, then it should speak for itself.
And from a sort of brand marketing point of view, riffing on that, I suppose there's a difference between that and sponsorship, isn't it? Like the sponsorship is just sort of badging the outside. Like, how would you make the argument for it from a brand point of view in terms of the value of it?
Sponsorship's a really interesting one because we do have kind of go-to-market sponsorship opportunities for brands all the time. We have content that can be badged, or you can put a pre-roll before a piece of Pride content, or we're currently, as I alluded to, not allowed to say too much, doing something for the World Cup that is becoming a sponsorship opportunity. And I think the easiest place to start for some of these things is, if it is around a big event that's happening or a big cultural moment, is to look at what brands are already naturally part of those, or kind of already sponsoring them, or already going big on these things. And that's kind of where you'd initially start with that, because again, we keep saying it, but it needs to feel authentic. Like, you're not going to randomly take something to a brand where it just doesn't, people question the fit. But yeah, I think it really kind of depends on what that sponsorship opportunity looks like for us. Obviously, they're all quite visual things. They all have a different story to tell, and I think it's just about taking it to brands who would be easily interwoven into whatever we're trying to push out, and it doesn't feel like we're just kind of, we found someone who's willing to pay for a sponsorship and then we'll retrofit it into this thing we've created. It has to feel like, who would be great for that? This person, and then you can kind of take it to market as you see fit. But we are on agency roadshows left, right, and centre. Our team are always out talking about what's new and what's coming up. And I think that word of mouth as well, just talking to the agencies who then might have a client that they might know something you don't know, and they say, I actually think they'd be great because between us, this is what they're looking to do this year. So I think the word of mouth piece and us just being on the front foot with what these sponsorship opportunities look like really helps.
I think it comes back to the story point as well. I think humans, we're really good. We're a storytelling species, right? We get stories.
Yeah.
And we can feel when a story's right, but we can also smell when a story doesn't quite make sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for me, sponsorship, there's like the difference between sponsorship and sort of authentic part of the story is like, does this story stack up? So your Tesla example, people looked at it like, this story stacks up for me. It doesn't smell wrong. And like that can be quite a good qualitative test, I think, as well. It's like, does this, like, if I step back, like, does this story make sense, or does it just feel a bit
exactly
off?
yeah like you know,
the characters are wrong.
For sure, if we were to launch a piece of editorial and it was, you know, all about the beaches of Rio, we would take that to Sol de Janeiro. You know, that would feel like a perfect fit. But yeah, I think people can absolutely tell if it just feels a bit like, why doing this?
Yeah.
Like,
Why is a good
what's
word.
the point?
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay, I want to end off a couple sort of quick-fire questions. Always like to ask people advice for your younger self. So how did you get into this? Are you surprised by where you are? But also, you know, I think, I don't know about you, but, you know, I often feel really lucky to be able to work in this industry, and you know, people come and say, oh, how do I get into it? So, you know, what advice would you offer yourself or people looking to get in?
Sure, okay, great. I also feel very lucky to do what I do. I think it's so hard to explain to people who don't work in this world what I do for a job, and I think a lot of people just don't understand it, but they always say, whatever you're doing at the moment looks really cool. It's like, I'm very jealous, but I don't really understand it. I also didn't really know what experiential was up until about a decade ago. I'm from a very small town in mid Wales, moved to London on a bit of a whim because like there was just no career opportunity where I was from, and I just felt like I needed something more. Moved here without a job, and then randomly got a job at the London Dungeons because I was like, I just want to do something that feels creative, from a theatre background and, you know, performing arts and things like that. So it felt like a good fit. I was there about 2 months before I then understood what experiential marketing was, went into a talent pool and got a job. So, and that was 9 years ago now. So it feels really long. But yeah, so I just kind of fell into it because I knew I wanted something creative. And it was just a friend of a friend who kind of told me about it. And that's how I kind of got into it. And I love it. I just think, I'm like, wow, how have I managed to find a job that fits my personality and like my actual passion points and hobbies? So I feel very lucky indeed. And I think advice-wise, I mean, I was that teacher's pet. I was that kid who was like, yeah, I want to do this, I'll help you with this, you know. But my advice to other people who want to get into it would be like, say yes to things, because you just don't know who you're going to meet if you go along to some sort of event. You don't know, you know, what connections you might make after you do a podcast or after you know, go to these things. So just get out there as much as you can, say yes to opportunities, go and see experiences, and like get yourself immersed in them as much as possible, because you just don't know where it'll take you.
Love it. Say yes more.
Yeah.
Good.
I had a friend whose her dad passed away sadly years ago, and she decided that in order to cope with it, she would just say yes to everything. She's Scottish, and she was like, I'm just going to say aye to everything. She had a year of aye.
Yeah.
She said it was the best year she ever had, coming out of quite a dark place. What would I do? What would I do differently?
Or no, what advice would you offer yourself?
Yeah, well, similar. I mean, all of us work in the immersive industry because it's quite new. It came calling rather than me deciding to do it. So Fabian, the founder of Secret Cinema, who I owe so much to, he came knocking, going, I need help with an immersive music concept. Will you come and basically work with me? And so that's how it started. And then we never made one. We carried on making film projects and worked on 20 Secret Cinemas. And now I'm freelance. I'm circling back and doing an immersive music project myself. So that's how it all kind of came to be. We were very secretive at Secret Cinema, clues in the word, but I would get out more. I would do more of this. All the work I made, we insisted that it was real, the rigor behind it, all of the authenticity, to back to that point of making the suspension of disbelief this robust bubble. It kind of meant that we had to believe it was real. We rehearsed everybody, rehearsed the front of house, like all of the different layers. And then when all that work was done, it just didn't feel right doing behind the scenes videos or going and talking too much about it in the press. So very siloed, and didn't really talk about my work at all. And in fact, when I went freelance, I realized I hadn't put any of my work, 20 shows, directed 8 Secret Cinemas, and I hadn't put any of it on the internet at all. Wow. So I probably put a bit more of my work on the internet, which is why I'm here talking about it.
Excellent.
Go out and see loads of work. I agree. Yeah, that's the best thing you probably do if you want to get into it.
Yeah.
Go and experience the experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Good.
what do you like
Be
about
real.
them? Pick them
Yeah,
apart
yeah.
and be
And-
like, what
yeah.
did I enjoy? What did
Yeah.
I feel when I was there? What was good? What was not great? And
Yeah.
then you can learn from it.
Exactly, and get like even if it's just a sheet of paper on a Google Drive or a Notion or a spreadsheet, like document it because our memories are not good enough.
Start
Like
to do-
what, like beg, borrow, get inspiration from different things. Write it down. Like what, even if you went to a really bad show, there'll be a reason why you thought it was bad. Like write that down because you probably won't remember it.
So
Yeah.
I like that because that is developing your own thinking.
Yeah.
Which I think that is a good thing by writing. But let's last two questions. Let's put a pin in that one. What was bad? Can you are there any sort of regrets or ones that got away, things you wish that you had done? That
Yeah. I mean, yeah, not a regret because I'm very confident we will make this happen at some point. But we have looked at a couple of times now hanging things from the ceiling in the Now building, our main space at Altanet. I'm not talking like just little bits of, tinsel here and there. I'm talking vehicles, people, all that sort of stuff. And I want to do a big suspension piece, and that is something that is like on my work bucket list that I'm like, I will make it happen. And we've scoped it multiple times, never quite got
Great.
there.
Any brands
So,
listening?
do you know?
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if we can hang a vehicle from the
Yeah.
ceiling.
Yeah.
No.
Be
so
the first.
yeah, if you want to do a big wow moment, back to your point, people
Yeah.
who come to see something and go, oh my god.
Yeah.
We want to do that.
Yeah.
So that's something that, I'm really keen to do and have looked at and not quite got there
We'll get
just
there.
yet, but we'll get there. Yeah.
Nice. Most of my work hasn't been made. Like most of it is sitting on a drive at Secret
Right.
Cinema that I can't talk about. I think the conversion ratio always blow my wife's mind. She'd be like, "So this one's happening, right?" I'm like, "No, I wouldn't say this one's happening." I would say like about 7% of the things I've made have actually been
Seen the light of
realised.
day, yeah.
But the one thing that I always wanted to do at Secret Cinema, which I don't think they're going to do anymore because they seem to be moving in a direction where they do more like on promenade musicals, is I always wanted to do the Truman Show. I thought it'd be the most participatory, fun,
Amazing.
and also the way that they torment Truman in the film with the dogs and the rain is a kind of metaphor for algorithms. Before we had, I think it's like dated incredibly well, and just imagine you're like a dog walker. We got okay, Q. We got dog walker team A here and
Yeah.
B. Who's
That
ready to
sounds-
go?
the
I
six-pack
love
guy.
that film.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
People would be like, I get to be that guy who
Yeah.
gets to do that
Yeah.
thing at
Yeah.
that time.
And you have multiple Trumans, and actually,
so
when you
cool.
run out of money and the sets aren't quite good enough, it would only add to the tragedy that Truman believes it. Like it's like this golden triangle of like immersion that keeps going. I think for me. And then, there's been a couple of music experiences that came and went, and I often reflect of like what like how, holding on to water, like what could we have done? But you just got to move on.
You never
Exactly.
know. You never know.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, okay, let's park that and let's end with on a high. I'd love to know your top 3 experiences that you've done or that you want to see. Who wants to go?
Go on,
first?
go on, please go.
Abby.
I mean, it's not in London. It was in Spain, but I think you probably have heard of it or seen it, or maybe you were even involved in it. I'm not sure. I was at the Campaign Experience Awards week before last, and some of the work there that was happening and some of the stuff that was shortlisted was incredible, like some great stuff from Monzo, Desperados, but there was a campaign for SEAT that really stuck out to me, and I don't want to get the wording wrong. It's called Salta Conmigo, and it was an immersive theatre experience that they toured in various cities in Spain, and they had the car on stage, and it was all about celebrating 40 years of SEAT. So they took people on this like journey through the decades, and everything like changed as like the music style, the costumes and everything kind of reflected those decades, and they took people through it, and they're in the audience. It doesn't feel like you're watching a show, you're in it, you get to be part of it. I'm not doing it justice by talking about it, but it really blew my mind when I saw the video of it, and I just thought that is so cool. And what a cool way for SEAT to show up and celebrate 40 years. Like it just felt really, and it felt authentic as well. It felt really cool. And then I think London-wise, I think, there's lots of experiences, and I've been to quite a few of them. I've done the Squid Game one, we've done the Traitors experience. 100% recommend.
Really?
Heard it's
If
great.
you haven't
Yeah.
done it, and I'm not just saying that because I was a faithful and I won the whole thing. I'm not just saying, no, genuinely the way they do it. And I think this is a nice example of like something that is digital, right? It's on TV, coming into the real world and people being able to play it. Because it's obviously blown up, it's been so popular. Would 100% recommend. But I think anything with like a game element, we did an escape room. At Outnet for Most Haunted. I don't know if you remember
Nice.
this show. Yeah,
Yeah.
like it's back, and we did an escape room theme in one of our spaces. It was like free, accessible, open to public, but a guided experience. You'd go in groups and you'd have clues to solve. There was jump scares. We did photos of people at the start, and then at the end they came up on the screens with this like ghoulish like look to them, because we like AI like changed it while they were in the experience. So it was like a nice surprise and delight moment. It kind of ticked loads of boxes as an experience. I think anything that like that has a gamification element or a challenge is like something that I'm always like, yes, I love that.
Yeah,
Back to
nice.
play. Yeah.
I mean, Yumi Bum Bum Train is one that always comes up. I'm lucky enough to do that twice, which, if you don't know, it's kind of like improv where you burst through 28 different realities as built sets full of actors and volunteers. It's a bit like Quantum Leap, if anybody's watched that, where the first scene of Quantum Leap where he beams into a world and he's like, oh no, and you basically got to direct the scene for a minute. It's really intense, and but quite hard to get a ticket for these days. But that one, and then a couple of music ones. Darren Emerson from Underworld did a really great VR one. Maybe the only good bit of VR after Marshmallow Laser Feast I've ever done, where you go to a rave in VR, and it was simultaneously very relatable and literal, but also very magical. Like in the back of a Vauxhall Nova, trying to find a rave, loads of lads. Like that's the opening scene. I'm like, I can relate to this. I've been here. But then it's quite, you end up surfing around the grooves of a record, and it's beautiful. And then one that's like still blows my mind when I think about it. Oh, excuse me. Was I don't know if you know Autaka, who like a atonal, arrhythmic kind of techno artist on Warp Records. They have figured out that if their music is so confronting and so impossible to is overwhelming. They figured out where if they perform in pitch black, like actual pitch black, like so they play at the Barbican, they play at the South Bank, and the ushers have to have night vision goggles. Amazing. It makes you go to really quite extreme places mentally, and you kind of hallucinate sober, and it's really, and we talk about the experience economy needed to transform people like that. So it's like a fringe outlier of immersive in a way, but it's truly transformational. You'll have thoughts you've never had.
It's extraordinary how immersive can be, like removing.
Yeah.
So we talk
Depriving.
about senses and doing multisensory, but actually by removing one, especially sight, is quite
That's
something.
phenomenal.
Yeah. They actually put a sheet of white paper beneath every seat, and if you can't handle it, you wave.
you
It's
could
like literally
really-
waving surrender.
least you
It's
had
quite an
some-
extreme experience. But if you're up for an extreme music experience, they're playing in Greenwich in November, I think. I urge you to go if you want a transformational sound.
It reminds me a bit about one of my favorites was Viola's Room. Did you do that?
Oh yeah,
By
I love
Punch
that
Drunk?
as well. That's charming. Yeah.
That was amazing. I guess partly because amazing soundtrack, 90s grunge, indie, but it was also very low tech. So it was all, everybody had headphones. It was pretty much just lighting and a lot of shadows, and then they just played with space, so they constricted. There was a single journey. But the one thing I loved about it was the opening moment when they kind of got you into it. They made you everybody had to take their shoes off. It's a barefoot experience.
Yeah, I
and they had to warn you beforehand, like, this is a barefoot experience, because I think for some people it's that's a big step. Taking my shoes off. And then they just played with the surfaces on the floor. And you're walking through sand, you're walking on carpets, and again, like, that's so simple. Just the soles of your feet, but it was transformative.
Yeah, and no one's done that before. I thought that was smart, and I love with that you go through this child's bedroom into a fairy tale, and then you come out and she's gone to uni, like you've been in there for like 10 years or something. I thought that was a touch.
Great. So that wraps up this episode of FYI. Really great discussion. And I think some of the things that stood out for me is just the size of the opportunity and the diversity of what's possible. But equally, what brands need to think about, really thinking about what's the story, what's the fit between the brand and the story that you want to tell, and how the small things can really make a massive difference. And wrapped around all of that, this timeless sense that people really want in-person experiences. They want shared attention and shared time together. And that can be extremely powerful, not just for people, but for brands who want to reach them. And finally, making a note, certainly want to try out the pitch black experience to see if you can handle atonal dance music. Sounds brilliant. So until next time, thanks so much.